All right, we got ourselves another video right here, bro. We about to see what actually caused this flash flood. If somebody could actually explain it, then maybe this is the right video to do it. So, no further ado, let's just hop into this. This is part two of Nepal and the flash flood that happened there. So, let's go.
Today, online especially, has been just these crazy images coming out of Nepal. And if you're not familiar with this part of the world, this is where the Himalayas are. And this is where Nepal is a country that's sandwiched between India and China, and it's the biggest mountains in the world. It's unbelievable how mountainous terrain this is. But I don't know about you, Tim. When I first saw these images, like a lot of folks, you almost didn't think they were real when we started seeing some of the first videos. And then you hear reports of an earthquake, you hear reports of landslides. But when I looked at it, you saw some of the videos, you're like, it looked like a flash flood. It was just too much liquid to be just a landslide or an earthquake. And come to find out that this was a glacial collapse. And the earthquake never happened. It was actually the earthquake registered with the seismographs because of how much debris and water was moving down these valleys. It actually registered as a 5.2 earthquake, but it was not technically an earthquake. Just your thoughts on this and these images. This is just unbelievable destruction over there.
Well, in one sense, it is. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's probably the easiest word to throw out there, but never been more true because, none of us have ever seen anything like this with our eyes, right? Like certainly not in person, even in images. This is not something of a normal flood. It's really more of just a raging flow of water and everything else in its path that's just careening down these, I guess they're not canyons, but so to speak, the valleys basically in these mountain ranges. It's incredibly tragic. I mean, not to be too graphic here, but anybody that you're seeing in these videos, I mean, gosh, most of them aren't going to make it, right? This is just horrible video. And I'm actually surprised at how much video we have from the scene and how quickly we have some of these satellite pictures too. But you touched on it briefly by saying a glacial collapse. I wager to guess most of our viewers have either never heard of it or don't really know what is a glacial collapse anyway. And
yeah, that's what I want to know.
Something like this get made and happen.
I want to know what that is.
Yeah, and some of this stuff naturally happens in the summer. Glaciers melt a little bit. Sometimes a small lake will build up with that melt water, and that temporary lake will be dammed up by parts of the ice and the snow, and it'll give way and you'll get a big rush of water. But this is a situation where these glaciers shouldn't be melting as much as they are. This is something you can clearly point to in our warming climate. Because remember, this is the top of the world. These are the highest elevations. Mount Everest is the biggest mountain in the world, right? So this is an area that's supposed to stay cold pretty much year round. That's why there's glaciers there, because glaciers, if you're not familiar with what glaciers are, I mean, a lot of people think they do, it's snow that doesn't melt season to season, and it sits there for years and years and becomes ice. So that's the way a glacier forms. It's actually snow that never melts from the previous winter. And so this, to me, looks like there was so much melting that the glacier was holding the water back. It collapsed. The only way I can describe it to people out there is it's like a dam bursting. If you had like the Hoover Dam just decided to give way and all the water spilled out.
So you tell me a block of ice was holding just a bowl of water this whole time up there? I ain't no scientist, okay? I'm just trying to understand, okay? You tell me a big chunk of ice was holding a bowl of water and just decided to say, fuck it, take a drink. That was a lot of water, bruh. Counting the floods, the rocks and everything that's coming down. These people ain't have a chance, man. That was a lot of water.
At once. That's basically what happened from this glacier, and it ran down. And I didn't get a lot of the data, but I saw one piece of data where the river that this is on, I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I am not good with, I was trying to figure out, it's not Chinese up there, it's like a variety of Chinese, but the river rose 30 feet in like a minute or two. It's just like unbelievable amount of volume of water. And as you mentioned, Tim, once the water gets going, it picks up everything, and it becomes a slurry of houses, rocks, debris, ice, you name it. And it made it all the way down to almost Kathmandu. That's how far it traveled.
Yeah, it is. It is just hard to imagine, and some of these pictures and videos, they were coming up from such high altitudes. I guess I don't know if these were hikers or people that live way up there, perhaps. But you kind of, even just looking at it from a bird's eye view, you could see it start, and then it just continued to build in intensity. You thought this is the worst that it could get. Then it got even magnitudes worse from that. So we have no experience with this, obviously, but probably the biggest comp for our areas, of course, would be the mountainous flooding that we saw with Helene about 2 years ago, when you, in a much slower rise, but you still see just those valleys get thrown to max capacity of water. And this is that to a totally another degree, and with no warning. As you can see there, it's a sunny day. There's no real concern. There's no real inkling that anything bad would be happening. But you did notice people start to flee before anything visual was happening. So I'm guessing that the vibrations and the sound, all of that, something that we can't really know, but we saw.
Hold on, y'all. I just noticed something on the map.
That anything
Let me see
bad
something.
would be happening.
Maybe I'm tripping. I just noticed something on the map.
People start to flee before anything visual was happening. So I'm guessing that the vibrations.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm looking at the map wrong. I'm over here. I'm just thinking like maybe the white area is all snow and mountains. Maybe I'm reading the map wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
And the sound, all of that, something that we can't really know, but we saw the seismometers really go off. Like you said, about a magnitude 5 was the registration on this thing. So there had to be some tremendous shaking that I guess you would have felt as a warning sign only seconds or minutes prior to it happening.
Yeah, I would imagine those steep canyons that they probably did hear the rumbling, and they probably didn't know what it was, but if you live in that part of the world, if you mountainous terrain, they probably thought avalanche, landslide, something. They knew something bad was happening, and just human nature is when you see somebody running, you're like, you don't ask questions, you just run the same way everybody else is, and get out of the way. But it is just, it's hard to fathom, and I will say, as you mentioned, Tim, these are hard images to watch because, as you mentioned, the people you see running, a lot of those people did not make it. So you're watching, people's loved ones and people, not making it in some of the imagery. And that's why there's warnings and disclaimers on a lot of this video. But it is something I think is going to be studied. I'm with you. I was shocked how quickly the satellite imagery was able to confirm what it was, and the USGS put out a statement saying, that it wasn't an earthquake, satellite imagery, and then later analysis, they confirmed it was a glacial collapse. But the imagery is just wild. You see the canyon, and then afterwards, I'm just struck how wide it was and how widespread. It wasn't like, a narrow area.
Yeah, we also know that satellites could do a lot more than just observe and report, right? I ain't trying to be a conspiracy theorist in this video. You know what I'm saying? But if you've seen movies like G.I. Joe, I don't care how bad the movie was, but if you've seen movies like G.I. Joe, James Bond, Die Another Day, do you catch my drift? I'm just saying. I mean, think about what happened in Hawaii with the fires. There's a lot of questioning that, right? There's a lot of questions to this day, still questioning that. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying.
Area. It's like takes up the whole canyon.
All for entertainment purposes only.
That's mind-blowing to me.
Not,
look at how wide that is. Tim.
Not the news, but
that's the whole valley.
It really is. I mean, like you said, the footprint of the river just totally, but times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5 after it got just, the volume of water here is really hard to imagine. And I think we probably need to know a little bit more about, all right, what does this glacial lake look like in the first place, so we kind of know more about what actually emptied onto it. But to put it in a different way, what if the dams that hold together Lake Norman didn't work anymore and they collapsed? When we saw certainly some of these warnings, I can't even count how many times we've heard warnings during horrible floods that, hey, this dam may be in an imminent threat of collapsing. And that's horrible news to get. And thank goodness almost every time we've heard that, it hasn't come to pass. But that's kind of the stakes that you're playing when we're talking about dams breaking, or in this case, glacial lakes. Certainly not a big risk of that anywhere close to where we live, without glacier lakes being a thing. But you pointed to an incident, I guess it was in Alaska, about 2 weeks ago, something similar, and it didn't seem to affect many people. It was a more remote area, but this is something that does happen in Arctic climates.
I was telling James, our producer, that too. I think this happens in Alaska more than we think, but it's so desolate and nobody lives there that nobody really gets to see it. Because the glaciers are a dangerous place to be around. Because even
speaking of Alaska, I don't never hear a lot of news about Alaska. I swear to God. As an American, I'm just saying. I mean, living in the States and shit, I don't never hear a lot of news about Alaska. You feel me? We might have to look up some Alaskan news, man, just to catch up and stay tuned. And what's going on up in Alaska, for real?
Without the
I don't know a damn thing about Alaska, bro.
Crevasses and everything else going on. It's not an area you get a lot of people. But what you're right, when you look at these images, the number of people that live in these Himalayan villages is unbelievable. And if you're probably not familiar, and thanks for the map, Tim. Nepal's that skinny little country there. In the higher elevations between India and China, and some of the highest terrain in the world. It's actually beautiful. I would love to go there someday and hike some of these areas. I would never go all the way to Everest. I don't think I'm up for that, but maybe hike up to base camp or Langtang Valley, which is a popular area. You might remember back in 2015 there was a massive earthquake up there that caused a lot of deaths as well. And this is an area that's prone to earthquakes. So it's steep terrain, glaciers, giant mountains, very prone to earthquakes. So you think you see everything in this part of the world, and this is something that even kind of blows all that stuff away, Tim.
Yeah, the whole reason that these mountains exist, right, is it's the intersection of two plates, right? Yeah. So you have, I believe it's the Asian plate, and you've got the Indian plate that are kind of coming together there, and they're just exuding all that pressure. And that's why those mountains got forced up in the first place. That's why earthquakes can happen, because there's still all that forcing and energy. The same thing that we see with the Pacific plate here, and the North American plate, and California, and Alaska, and all these places. So there's a whole lot of geology going on underneath the ground and beneath the surface that we can't see, and it's a kind of a scary place, to be honest with you. They always mention how climbing Everest is one of the most dangerous.
I like how you put that, though, to be honest with you. Just saying.
All these places. So there's a whole lot of geology going on underneath the ground and beneath the surface that we can't see.
That we probably don't know. The news can tell us anything, you know what I'm saying? But the truth is, are they telling us everything? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on under the earth that we possibly don't know about. At least the regular people. Like I said, I ain't trying to make this video a conspiracy, but I'm just saying. The news could be telling us other stuff. With all the folklores, mythologies, the Bible. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
And it's a kind of a scary place, to be honest with you. They always mention how climbing Everest is one of the most dangerous things you can do. There's so many factors at play. It's not just the climbing part or the slipping and falling. You got to be aware of these natural hazards that can come with it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think you're right, Tim. I think in the coming days and weeks we're going to see a lot of geologists and other scientists go back and look at some of the satellite imagery and other data, and we'll probably get some calculation of how much volume of water came down and how long that lake had been building up there. Because the great thing about our satellite imagery, you can go back in time and kind of see these things and look and say, okay, this is what happened 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. But I think it's from Planet Labs. They have those mini little satellites that are doing amazing work. They can turn around that stuff really, really quickly. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's horrible, but I'm also very fascinated by how the Earth works like this, Tim, and I think it'll be interesting to see what we learn from that.
I hope it wasn't no experiment gone wrong. I'm just saying, bro. I wish they would have really tapped into the real details of like how does a glacier, from top of a mountain actually cause a flash flood. I wish they would like show like computer imagery or something like that. Maybe they got other videos. I gotta keep searching, bro. If I find one, I give it to y'all. But right now, I like I said, stay safe, man. But hey, Mother Nature ain't no joke. Don't fuck with it. I mean, just from the videos, y'all saw how quick that shit happens and how much little time you have to freaking find safety. Say it again. Pray for Nepal. Y'all be easy.